If you are in fight or flight, you could buy $1 million golden calendar. It ain't gonna do shit.
I think so many entrepreneurs self-identify and kind of have this motto like, oh, like I work really well under pressure.
We think the fear, shame, urgency, guilt will motivate us. What sane person would slow down as a response to, I'm behind and need to catch up? Nobody. Why would you slow down? You need to go faster. When we are dysregulated, we're stuck in our brains. We're stuck in thinking. We're stuck in fear. Very hard to execute anything.
Hello and welcome back to Ambitious. Okay, today we are talking all things ADHD, and there is a very specific reason that you need to not only yourself listen to today's episode, but you also should be sharing it with all of your entrepreneur friends and peers. And that is because I found this crazy alarming stat. Did you know that in the general population of everyday people, ADHD affects about 4 to 5% of those people. But amongst entrepreneurs, studies estimate that on average, 29 to 35% of all entrepreneurs experience or have some aspect of ADHD traits. That's right, 30 to 35%. So that's why today is a really important episode for you to dive into. And we are joined by the absolutely incredible, amazing human, Jenna, who I had the absolute pleasure of working with and also myself learning from immensely when it comes to ADHD. So, a little bit about Jenna. Jenna is a registered psychotherapist and also a Canadian certified counselor. And I will say, in my opinion, someone that I consider to be the leading voice and advisor for all things ADHD and supporting adults with that. What I like about her perspective is the fact that a lot of what she teaches is not just theory and principle around ADHD, but it's actually from her lived experience. She was diagnosed with ADHD, which she'll share in today's episode, actually in adulthood, in the middle of motherhood and grad school and all of the things. And it was really then that she started to realize the impact it was having on her life. And so what she did is she basically has paired her experience of ADHD with her, master's in psychology and built an entire practice of her own, helping people and specifically adults to navigate real life impacts of ADHD. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what you're going to be learning today because it is a juicy episode. If I could say myself, I would say it's an ADHD masterclass. We talk about why the idea of I work best under pressure and that mentality is actually the thing that's sabotaging your long-term success. We're going to also be talking about the reason that you keep getting stuck in these exhausting kind of crash cycles where you have lots of energy and then none. She's going to unpack her 3 biggest mistakes that keep ADHD entrepreneurs stuck, including why the typical productivity tools like, the trackers and the downloads and all of that are the real reason that you're continuing to struggle. And yes, she also talks about timers. So for any of you who have those timers on your desk to stay focused, you're going to want to listen to this. She also goes through and explains in depth her 5-tier framework that gets to the root of why you are swinging between these extremes in your business of all or nothing thinking as well as behavior. She'll impact why so many driven women do not get diagnosed oftentimes with ADHD until their 30s, and how beliefs with the idea of things like I'm behind or I need to catch up are actually something that's continuing to keep you dysregulated. We'll talk about how to move forward from being motivated by fear and urgency to actually having a sustainable business that doesn't cause you to burn out. This is one of those episodes where I'm going to be honest, you're going to want to grab a pen and paper because the insights that she shares are going to be an incredible reframe. And I have used in understanding her 3 mistakes as well as her 5-tier framework. I also talk in today's episode about how I've used those in my life and the impact that those have had. And so if you are someone who thinks you have ADHD, or maybe you yourself have actually been formally diagnosed with ADHD, please listen to today's episode in full because this is a masterclass in everything that you're going to need to know. So I'm going to stop yapping. With all that being said, without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to the Ambitious Podcast. I am so excited for today. I feel like I am just as much excited to listen as I am to ask. So I feel like I just always enjoy our conversations. I am honored today to be joined by Jenna. Jenna, welcome to the Ambitious Podcast.
Hello. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I can't wait to dive in. I feel like I was just saying to Jenna before we press record that I had all these questions because Today's topic, we're going to be talking about all things ADHD. And Jenna, obviously, if you've consumed any of her content, is an absolute expert. And this is all she does, is talks about this day in, day out in every lens of regulation and symptoms and how to overcome it, how to live with it. And so there's so much to unpack today. But I really want to start with your story, because you noted that you didn't technically get quote unquote diagnosed with ADHD until your 30s, which I feel like for
Mhm.
a lot of people, we were saying before we press record, there's so many people who probably feel like they resonate maybe with the symptoms of ADHD, or they feel like maybe they have ADHD, but maybe they haven't been formally diagnosed. So how was the journey of you getting diagnosed? How did that kind of come to be?
Yes. It was definitely after I had kids, and then when I was in grad school, and just life became so big and so full of responsibilities that it just, like, showed the symptoms more, or I wasn't masking like I used to be able to. So often for women, we are diagnosed honestly, mostly in our 30s plus. A
Mm.
lot of clients is like, "I'm 62." It's like, "Hey, better late than never."
Yeah.
Any time is a great time to
Yeah.
start understanding yourself more. But especially after kids, that is just something where 1, puts your hormones out of whack, which increases ADHD symptoms.
Mm.
2, the responsibility and the constant attention parenting requires,
Mhm.
it kinda, like, puts a spotlight on, like, this issue that maybe you've
Yeah.
always felt. Like, before I always felt, "Ah, ha, ha, I think differently than other people." Like, I thought I was just, like, this unique thinker. I'm
Yeah.
just so special. And I'm like, "Oh, I just have ADHD." But I did after I had kids, I was struggling. It's usually when you're struggling that you're seeking a diagnosis, right? Not just that you're different,
Mm.
but I'm different in a way that's not working.
Right.
So I just felt everything was so unmanageable. Life felt so hard, and I'm talking like sweep the floor, do the laundry. Like, it's not a hard life. It's not
Yeah.
hard stuff, but it just felt like so much all the time, and I was so overwhelmed all the time. And so I remember first thing kind of saying to my mom, "I think I have ADHD." And just to her, that was just so didn't make any sense. It was like, only child, girl, goody two shoes, did well in school, calm and quiet. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
How could you have ADHD? But for women and girls, it is often internal or internalized, like a lot of thinking, ruminating, anxiety. The chaotic nature is inside, not outside. So
Mm.
when it's not impacting adults in your life, nobody really cares.
Yeah.
Like,
Or
you're sick.
doesn't really notice, because I think
Yeah.
for me, like when you're saying your family's like, how is that possible? You were the one who was sitting quiet. That would have been my,
Mm.
and but obviously before diving into a lot of what you've shared in your work, that would have been my assessment. I remember in elementary school, the kids that were diagnosed with ADHD were the ones who typically, like, physically were bouncing off the walls, like, couldn't sit still type of, I guess, like, assessment was what many people associated with ADHD. But I feel like that's a
Mhm.
really different perspective, because you're saying all of the quote unquote symptoms that many women specifically would feel are going to be internalized. So they're not really something easily from an outside way to be able to diagnose.
Yeah. So a lot of people go through the cracks, and it's one thing to just go, "Oh, I just didn't know," but like studies show, the sooner you have intervention, the better the results. So if
Mm.
you're just getting by, just keeping your head above water till you're 32, like me, it's like that
Mhm.
sucks. That
Yeah.
sucks. It's too bad, but I do think everything happens for a reason, and I was supposed to go through what I went through. And I was supposed to figure it out when I figured it out, because I was in grad school to become a therapist, and I was going to work with eating disorders because that's what I'd worked on previously, as coaching with disordered eating and
Mm.
intuitive eating and everything. But I kind of lost my passion for it, 'cause it had been like 7 years, and my relationship with food was so healed. So it's just kind of like old hat. But
Yes.
it's what I know,
Yes.
so it's what I'll do. Then I was diagnosed, and then I was like, "Ugh, okay, makes so much more sense."
Yeah.
And they like,
And I'm curious, like, because the word diagnosis, I think many people assume that to be formal doctor in their
mhm.
office diagnosing you and saying, we've looked at XYZ and you have ADHD, is what most people think when they think diagnosis. And in your opinion, in the work that you do, how important or significant is it for someone, in your opinion, to be, like, formally diagnosed versus, if we're just gonna be candid about it, like TikTok diagnosed,
Mhm.
which is like
Yeah.
I'm going through your content or someone else's content, and you're listing things off and you go, oh my gosh, I've never felt so seen. Like, do you feel like if someone's consuming ADHD content and feeling like they see themselves, is it important or essential for them to get formally diagnosed?
Well, I think it's so personal. I think the only reason people think if you're not formally diagnosed, it's like a bad thing or you shouldn't assume that is because one, people think, they're just trying to get stimulants. They're just trying to
Mm,
get meds,
yeah.
which is not the way for everybody and not, what many people choose to do and is amazing for some.
Yeah.
So, first of all, usually to get meds, you are going to need a formal diagnosis, but I have heard of doctors being like, try this. But I'm sure if it's like, wow, that really impacted me, you'd go get a diagnosis
Yeah.
to, continue on the medication. So for medication, it might be necessary. For official accommodations at work, you might want an official diagnosis, because legally they need to support you in some different ways.
Mm.
But another reason why people might think like, oh, that's so bad to self-diagnose is because they think people are going to use it as an excuse.
Mm.
Like, oh, so now I don't have to work as hard. Now I don't have to do anything. Now I just go, oh, la-di-da, I'm going to scroll all day instead of, do my chores because I have
Yeah.
ADHD. I've
Yeah.
never,
Yeah.
ever met an ADHDer who has that attitude. Like every single one is beating themselves up so hard about not doing enough. They are working so hard. It's just not effective. So it's not that anyone's lazy or trying to seek a reason to do less.
Mm.
But if you think it explains your struggle and then you see tools and strategies that could help you, why would that ever hurt? Even people that are like, oh, everyone has ADHD these days. Everything is ADHD on my posts. I'm like, why are you so pressed that people are finding things that help them? Like,
Yeah.
most of it's
You're upset
mindset.
that people are getting support to live better.
Yeah,
Okay.
like,
Got
who
it.
cares?
Yeah.
It's not like I'm out here doling out medication. I'm
Right.
saying here's strategies, here's mindset work, here's nervous system work, here's really positive mental health stuff that could help anybody, honestly, even if you
Well, that's
don't
what
know.
I'm thinking because
Yeah.
obviously we're going to dive into, the principles that you teach. And when I think about some people that I even know in my immediate circle who I would not say, again, to my knowledge, have ADHD, could greatly benefit from your principles and your approaches. So I think it's also, like you're saying, it is mindset work. It's, you know, the basis of what a lot of people need as skills to just like live a better life as well. I'm curious if someone's listening and they're thinking, okay, maybe they don't know the difference between ADD versus ADHD, or they're in this place where maybe they have had that quote unquote TikTok diagnosis where they just feel so seen. What are some of the core indicators or symptoms or kind of signs that you see that are usually more obvious in women that they
Mhm.
are struggling or maybe navigating ADHD right now?
Yeah. Just as a little note, like ADHD is the term used for all types of ADHD at this point. So there's no ADD
Okay.
that doesn't exist anymore as a name. But it's
Okay.
ADHD, but then there's like hyperactive type or inattentive type or combination type. So hyperactive would be like the physical running around little boy in the
Yes.
classroom, and the inattentive is usually more the and it's not exclusive, absolutely not, but more inattentive type is more for women and girls that shows up in that kind of more internalized way. But I will also say I have seen research that shows that as we turn it into adults or as we grow into adults, you kind of turn more to the inattentive type, even for the hyperactive boy, you're not going to necessarily see that man running around the office. Like
Right.
it's
Right.
internalized probably because
Right.
of socialization. And as an adult with a fully formed brain, we can now control a bit more of that, but it's
Mm.
still present and still affecting us. People used to think you outgrow it, and you absolutely do
Yes.
not, but it might just be more internalized.
Got it. Got
Yeah.
it. Okay.
But anyways, the main kind of these internalized symptoms would be overwhelm, and paralysis is really common in women. Just like, you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh my God, like, how am I going to do this day? And you see everything in front of you and it's overwhelming all the time. Even if it's just a normal day where there's not a lot going on, it
Yeah.
just feels so much all the time. Like even when I had university with nothing going on and I was just like, "Oh my God, I have to put socks on in the morning. Like this is so hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything's so hard." And then kind of the symptom that I talk a lot about that I don't think is very, common in the ADHD discussion is that frantic crash cycle. So we're go, 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 go. And then, oh my God, I've hit a wall and I can't even make dinner. And then at work, you're
Mm.
running around like a chicken with your head cut off. Oh my gosh, I'm so stressed. There's so much to do, so urgent. And then can't do anything, right? So it's this
Mm.
up and down, which a really common misdiagnosis for ADHD is bipolar disorder, which I did not realize that until after I shared on a post. I'm like, I used to think I'm like questioning, do I have bipolar disorder? Like I knew I didn't because there wasn't a lot of the other things that come with that, but there
Yeah.
was just these highs and lows that I didn't know were an ADHD thing because it is not in that kind of typical set of symptoms that we hear about.
Yes.
But those ones I think are really common for the inattentive type or that more internalized experience.
And that's the one that you would say you mainly see within women or mainly
Yeah.
within adults in
Mainly
general?
in adults, I think.
Mm, okay. And for women, you were saying most women are diagnosed, or it's typical for women to be diagnosed later in life.
Yeah, just because if like me, I was that girl that was quiet, doing okay in school. Like, I
Mm,
was working very hard to keep my head above water, and I was, you know, quite scattered and like, doing my best, but it looked pretty okay from the outside and wasn't too
right.
disruptive because it was internalized. So, yeah, you just don't get noticed until I find mostly for women, it's like the thing that's getting noticed is our internal experience of like, this is not a good experience of life.
Mm,
And often, like, oh, at work, I'm doing really well. Outward facing, external stuff looks okay, but behind the scenes is a shit show. Like,
yeah.
don't come to my house. I have a few rooms that I have to like close the doors, right? That's how we
Yes.
mask as well.
Yes.
So that could also be a symptom of like, why am I so good at work, so on, or even entrepreneurs? Why am I so with it? Maybe
Yeah.
with some of my work, but then my personal life is a gong show. My house is a mess. I can't, do my entrepreneur stuff and keep my house and family life going. It's too much.
Which is such an interesting perspective because I think, especially in the entrepreneur world, we often hear this perspective of how you do one thing is how you do everything. And that like cracks that right open because it
Yeah.
basically would say that if you're, let's just say if your house is a mess, it assumes by default that you're that way in business, that you're that way in every bucket. Would you say it's fair to say that people who are navigating ADHD sometimes will have things compartmentalized, meaning that they can really thrive in one area, but find that they struggle within another area?
And it'll typically be where there's more external reinforcement or external pressures where we thrive. So I often find that to be work for most people, and home life where it's more about you and it's your own home, your own space. That's kind of thing that we let go
Mm,
and goes to
yes.
shit because of that like pressure. Where there's pressure, and we'll get into more
Yeah.
nuanced stuff about this, where there's the external pressure and you're living in fear and shame and guilt, we actually can function better. And where it's like, it's just about me and my well-being, meh.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense because you're performing at work because people will notice if you don't perform. But at home, you're
Mhm.
like, laundry doesn't get done. The only person who's going to notice is maybe me and my partner. And other than that, that's
Yeah.
about it. Okay. So you talk a lot because obviously, if you guys have gone to Jenna's stuff, you know that she hosts trainings often. She has an incredible program, the ADHD Groups program. And in this, you talk about some common mistakes that you see people make when it comes to ADHD. One of the ones that I remember you talked about, and I felt so seen when you shared it, was frantic energy and this aspect of like being productive under pressure. And this idea of like what happens to us when we're constantly in this panic and this urgency state. And so I'm curious if you could share because you kind of hit on these core, three buckets, if you will, three big mistakes that you often see people make. And one of those you shared was the aspect of urgency and the frantic energy. And so just if you could share, what does that look like and why is that, potentially a disconnect or a mistake that someone might make if they're trying to navigate ADHD?
Yeah. So when we have ADHD, and I'm just going to add in here, and we're in fight or flight, because that's my whole framework.
Yeah.
Because if you have ADHD, you're probably also in survival mode and in fight or flight. And when we're in that space, and then in that frantic crash cycle, so it's like, oh my gosh, I go, go, go. And then I can't trust myself because I'm going to crash. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do anything tomorrow. So I better get everything done today. Right? There's this kind of cycle and this fear we get stuck in. So you're either intense, pushing, trying to beat the clock, beat the deadline. I got to do it right now and I got to do everything today. And then the next day you're like, oh my God, so exhausted. I can barely do anything. But it's like, well, dude, yesterday you were running around like a chicken with your head cut off. Of course
Yeah.
you're tired today, but it just feeds that assumption that like that cycle is fed by that belief that, I can't trust my energy. I will inevitably crash. if I have any energy, I have to squeeze that lemon for every drop, right? It's like I have to get everything out of it and absolutely push until I can't go anymore. Because now, look, I knew it. I crashed. I have no energy today. I'm so glad I got it all done yesterday. But again, cycle. That's how we get stuck, because then we believe now we have the evidence versus in my approach is like we got to slow down and we got to focus on sustainability, not urgency. Like, can I function at a level every day where I can show up every single day? I find as an entrepreneur of 9 years now that the first 7, when I was doing the whole push crash thing, I
Yeah.
made no money, had no growth. Yes, I had a big Instagram following, but
Yeah.
I didn't have like a foundational business I was growing. And now in the past 2 years, as a more regulated ADHD or an entrepreneur who is just like showing up a little bit every single day instead of like reinventing the wheel one day and then being absent for a month,
Yeah.
I have had steady, consistent growth every single month. And I feel like I
Mm.
have something solid and foundational. So it's just this like shift in understanding we're in a cycle and it's not working. We're in a cycle of extremes and that is hurting us. It is not the way it has to be. We should not lean into it. Some ADHD coaches, I've had clients who are like, my last ADHD coach said to lean into that, right? Taking advantage of that energy when you have it. But that's just, if you understand the cycle, you're like just pulling that pendulum even further in one direction and
Yes.
it's going to go even further the other way. So we want to bring those extremes in to be more balanced and steady instead of pushing them further apart where you're on this like insane roller coaster.
Well, I also feel like even in hearing that, it almost feels in an aspect like the self-fulfilling prophecy
Mm.
because you're pushing and pushing in the belief that you're going to crash. And so I'm curious for your clients, are you acknowledging the crash? Meaning, are you trying to say, listen, no, we're not going to be crashing? Or is it a matter of saying the crash is only happening because you're pushing so much? So the goal is to regulate in that aspect so there isn't a crash that occurs. And so, like, I feel like even in listening to you, I could see how someone would push, push, push because they're telling themselves the crash is coming, the crash is coming. And so you kind of end up creating the cycle in
Yeah.
itself. And so the curiosity becomes like, what if we just looked that the crash wasn't coming and you had to maintain whatever you're doing forever or
Yes.
consistently? Is that kind of typically what clients will do?
Yeah, that's what we're working towards. It's more than just, oh, okay, I understand now. I'll just be balanced. Like when our system is
Yeah.
in fight or flight,
Yeah.
we're not making conscious choices at this point. Like
Yeah.
we are just in reactivity. You're just flinging from one extreme to the next. So there's that kind of more primal work to do of getting your system out of fight or flight. So the beliefs are important because if you believe, I have to push hard or I will crash, you will never change that cycle, right? You will never change your behavior because you believe that to be true. So that is something we work on as well is what would be a more regulating belief? What would regulate you? What would feel better is like, oh, however much I do every day is good. Like I need to live in a way where I can show up like this every day. And that's just a good thought experiment. Like, could I function this way, after a work day, could I function this way for the next 6 months? Every work day. If it's no, we have a problem because you're going to presumably work for more than 6 months.
Yeah.
You're going to be hopefully working for 20, 30 more years, however old you are.
Yeah.
So it's really looking at the nervous system, the beliefs, and then the behavior that come from that, right? Because if you believe, I have to push because the crash is coming, you will act in that way, right? I will go, 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 and then I will crash. So it's all intertwined and it's a lot more complicated than just like be balanced.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that is the thing we need to be aware of in
Yeah.
order to get started.
And I think that's important because I think oftentimes, like again, if anybody scrolls on TikTok looking for ADHD coaching or insight, there's a lot of use this tracker to keep yourself in track when you're in what I would assume is that urgent, frantic state. And you're like, while you're frantic and you can't remember where you put your phone or you realize that, you've forgotten something, here's a tracker to help and support you in your frantic stage. And so I feel like it's so incredible to hear you share that because I think for so many people, when we think about trackers or timers or any of that, you shared something which is that you're not conscious, meaning like you're not a matter of always being in tune to it.
Mhm.
So the only thing that I can see is that a timer would bring you back to consciousness temporarily. But
Right.
you're basically saying by having your own tools, meaning even if you forget the timer, you still have the ability to kind of tune back into yourself with yourself without the trackers, without the timers, without the planners, and all of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the external tools are really, I see it as like a Band-Aid or like an umbrella in a hurricane. It's like, yeah, they'll keep you dry for a few minutes, but then you need a new umbrella, new umbrella, new umbrella.
Yeah.
How about we just like calm the storm or get you out? Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
at some point it's fruitless, which is why a lot of people get frustrated. They buy 5 different calendars, 5 different timers. I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurial listeners have tried so many things to like organize
All the
their time.
notebooks.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, all their business. And it's like, nothing works. I'm so stupid. I can't do it. It's nothing to do with that. It's because you are in fight or flight. Your brain is not thinking clearly. Blood flow has left the prefrontal cortex. That's the part of the brain responsible for prioritization, planning, and logical thinking. You don't have time to use your calendar because you're in fight or flight, right? You're in that urgent state.
Mm.
Versus if you do the deeper internal work of getting regulated, getting out of fight or flight, now the tools work. Like I just use a paper calendar. My tools are a paper calendar and just a digital wristwatch, like not even a smartwatch. Simple. That's all
Yeah.
I need. There's no magic bullet coming in the form of some calendar, some timer, some tool. I had a client in a group say she bought this like she says like $947 thing. I forget what it was called.
Wow.
Some people might know what it is. Obviously, it's like something very particular. She's like, I was sure that was gonna like solve all my problems and that the high ticket price was going to like force me to
Yes.
use it. If you are in fight or flight, you could buy $1 million golden calendar. It ain't going to do shit. Like it's not going to do anything because you are in fight or flight. So
Yeah.
that is why I love this work, because it's like, let's do the internal stuff so that you're empowered to show up as your best self and use a simple paper calendar. Use a
Mm.
watch and carry on and be productive and successful with very little required outside of yourself
Yeah.
versus like, wow, there's an internal storm happening and I'm flinging from one extreme to the other and I'm holding on to these like external tools as a buoy in the
Yes.
water to
Yeah.
prevent me from drowning. It's like, well, let's get out of the ocean. Like it
Yeah.
really is that big of a difference.
Well, I remember someone had said on an earlier episode around, regulation and in the context of like productivity. And they said, could you regulate on an airplane to be able to go do
Mhm.
it? And it's like, if you don't have your timer, if you don't have the calendar with you, how do you move forward? And exactly as you said, you're creating otherwise supports that are completely outside of yourself, which means in a given moment, if you don't have what you need, you physically can't perform the way that you need to.
Yeah.
So,
And
okay.
it
So,
doesn't solve the problem. And I think that's what's so maybe sad that people are like, well, I should just be able to use a calendar and that should solve my organizational issues. But it's not a logical problem. They say like
right.
ADHD is not a knowledge issue, it's a execution problem, meaning actually doing it. And when we
Mm,
are dysregulated, we're stuck in our brains, we're stuck in thinking, we're stuck in fear, very hard to execute anything. So
mhm.
it's like no tool can or should be solving all your problems. It's not you. It's the dysregulation, and that you can work on.
Yes. Okay. You also talk about that people are often, you see with clients, motivated when they come to you by fear and shame. And so I'm curious, how does that play into part of how people stay stuck when it comes to ADHD?
Yeah. So when we are in ADHDers in fight or flight, which I'm assuming every single person who hasn't actively done this work is, we are using the push motivators, as I call them, to function, meaning I'm running away from the thing I don't want versus towards the thing I do want. So
Mm,
fear, shame, guilt, and urgency. And your brain wouldn't cultivate all that and obsess about all that if it didn't think it was helping.
mhm.
Right? All of this fight or flight stuff, all the dysregulation stuff is happening because your body thinks you're in imminent life threatening danger and it's trying to save you. So, of course, when a bear is coming, we want our body to be triggered into fear and urgency. Like,
Mm.
yes, that is going to save your life. But
Yeah.
when it's emails to write and a launch to do, running away and feeling shame, urgency, fear, and guilt is not going to get you into a place where you're performing well, sustainably showing up every day, taking action, and being logical. You are going to be reactive, desperate, frozen, all of that
Mm,
stuff. So we really want to observe again, the belief that I am only motivated by fear, shame, urgency, and guilt. Currently, yes, maybe, but that's not inevitable. That's not who you are. I refuse to believe, especially ADHDers. I think we're the coolest people. Everyone I meet is always so interesting and fun and very, very smart. I do not believe that, anyone listening who thinks they might have ADHD really, truly doesn't care about themselves, has no desires, and no internal pull. Right? That's just not true. But when you're in a state of, I'm either running from the bear or recovering from running from the bear, yes, those are going to feel like the only things that are effective. But again, pushes that cycle into even more extremes. Because then now I'm doing nothing. I'm not executing anything until I feel that fear and urgency. Because otherwise, I'm going to rest and recover. Right? Just like I'm not going to run before the bear comes.
Yeah.
I'll burn out before the bear gets here. So I got to wait for the bear to come. It's such primal stuff, like the fight or flight thing in our bodies, which is why I say that. But I'm going to wait and rest until I'm in actual danger. Then I'll run. Right?
And
it's
so
the
that
same
would
thing with
look
that.
like, from a lifestyle example, that would look like having, I don't know, 2 to 20 minutes worth of laundry to put away, but you don't put it away until you have nothing else to wear. Or like, what would be, I guess, some examples or real life examples you see with people that are a sign or an indicator that they are completely operating out of what you call the push based kind of motivator versus the pull based?
Yeah. So it might be, not cleaning your clothes until you have nothing to wear, not cleaning your house unless someone's coming over, not getting your automated emails done for your launch until the 10 minutes before you want to send them. It's like, oh, wow, I'm not doing anything. I'm not able to set myself up. I'm just doing the one thing right in front of me to keep my head above water so I don't drown. But I'm not doing anything beyond that because I don't have the motivation unless the bear is chasing me. But again, that's kind of a conditioned response when we're in fight or flight. Because now, like I said, with that analogy of the bear, you're not going to run from the bear at all times when he's not there. Of course. But if you can connect with the reality that there is no bear and you're fine, you are not in danger.
Right.
Now I can just doop-a-doop-a-doo.
Well, it's
I just
interesting you
walk
say
around the
that
forest.
too, because I think so many entrepreneurs self-identify and kind of have this motto like, oh, like I work really well under pressure. Like if I have it's like if I have a
Yeah.
looming deadline, like you're saying that
Yeah.
email is due in 20 minutes, or like again, like I have people coming over, I can get right to it and be able to get so much done. But I guess to what you're noting, that basically creates a loop that the bear always has to be around the corner in order for you to progress in your life, which for anybody, like what kind of life is that?
And I get that because I lived that for 32 years. I also was like, damn, I'm good. I can write a 15-page paper like 2 days before. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. But one, that was a horrible way to live. I was always
Yeah.
stressed. It's not like you're chilling and on a hammock, relaxing until 2 days before, then writing the paper. 2 weeks, you're going, I should really start that paper. I should really start that paper. Why aren't I writing that paper? Blah, 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 blah. So it's not like it's rest when you're not executing. And I promise you, if you are only functioning for 1 or 2 hours at a time when you are being pushed and at the final deadline, you are doing way less than someone that's boopy doopy doo chugging along for 8 hours a day every single day
Right.
without stressing. And that's what I
Right.
have really, really seen. 7 years as someone who was like that, especially in entrepreneurship. Push, crash, super intense. Now I'm doing nothing. I'm working like crazy and then nothing. I did not experience reward from that monetarily or
Yeah.
internally. Now that I'm just, I'm in that forest on a nice hike and I'm going to be hiking for hopefully 20 more years
Yeah.
in this way.
Yeah.
I have, what would the number be? Dare I say like 100x my income? No, maybe 50, maybe 25x my
Yeah.
income in 2 years
Yeah.
because I slowed the hell down. And now I'm walking sustainably and not in fight or flight. So it feels like you're doing less. Sometimes I'm like, how did I get here? I've barely done anything. I
Well,
just
maybe do you wonder if it's not even that you're doing less, but you feel more calm in the work? Like it
well,
feels
that's what I
less
mean.
strenuous.
Exactly. It requires less energy, that's exactly what I mean. Is I've spread the same, even if it's the same energy that I did bursts and then nothing, spread that out over every day. Each single day is not that. Write an email, do a post, big whoop. do a
Yeah.
call. Like, it's not that
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
But when I was thinking, "Oh my god, I have to," out of desperation and
Mm.
fear and, "Oh my god, I gotta do all this stuff," that felt so hard even if the next week I wouldn't do anything,
Mhm.
right? It's like, and again, it's not like the doing nothing was going on vacation and having fun. It was sitting there frozen, scrolling, feeling shame because I should be doing more. And now I like play tennis once a week and I'm genuinely so present and having fun, like taking time out of my work days to go do
Yeah.
fun stuff. And when I'm at home working, I'm working, but in a like doo 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 doo.
Yeah.
That's the sound that all my clients are like, I hear you in my mind, Jenna. Doo 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 doo. It's like life can be that calm and simple, and you can get
Mm.
way further than when you think, oh, I need to hustle, I need to push, I need to go so hard. Because the crash is, again, it's just the cycle we're in. And if you can find sustainability and regulation,
Mm.
less work, more reward, more fun. It's like no downfall to it.
There's just such a massive mindset element to it because even as you said, like I sit there and I scroll and, the shame that comes up, I would imagine too, like this constant fight or flight or this constant like push, 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 and then you crash, push, 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 and then crash. It also, I feel like over time, and probably even especially for yourself, if you got diagnosed in your 30s, there's that period where you think like, am I just not able to be consistent? Am I just
Mhm.
not able to do things every single day? Like I think like even for people that I know who feel like they're super, super clean or their house is a mess. And it's
Yeah.
like this, ugh, like I can never seem to be or maintain it. Like it's this identity and belief and this mindset that I would also hazard to guess feels very heavy. Like obviously you have the
Mhm.
realities around you that are heavy, meaning no one enjoys that I have a clean house and now it's all a disaster. But I think there's also, like you're saying, the shame aspect, which is we then internalize, I would assume, what that means about us. It's like I lack consistency or I was the one who made the mess or I couldn't stay consistent with my promise of
Yeah.
XYZ. Like I feel like there's such a deep mindset that kind of gets validated then when really it's just a cycle that's a result of your regulation.
Mhm. Or even like the realities of being dysregulated, you internalize that as personal failing, choice, who you
Mm,
are, laziness, right? Versus it's real. It's real. You really were intense and cleaning a lot and then you crashed and now everything's a shit show and it's so overwhelming even gets to start cleaning again, right?
mm,
And it's kind of that, again, the cycle in that way where it does pile up so much that now it feels so big to start that I don't start and I avoid it even longer. So that's
mm,
very much a reality, but that's not you. It's not inevitable and that's not permanent. That is dysregulation, and we can get out of fight or flight and into regulation. So the ADHD experience is much, much more manageable.
mm. Okay. So let's talk about how to overcome it. And obviously, when I say this, I want to preface this is not like a magic pill because I know that this is work that you integrate with people, as you noted earlier. But you have kind of this 5-step or 5-tier ADHD framework. And one of the things that you guys will notice if you go to any of Jenna's content or her podcast is you often talk about regulation as like the center of all of it. And obviously you mentioned some others today, like beliefs, all or nothing thinking, and we'll get into those. But the first one obviously being regulation. And so when someone thinks about regulation, what are maybe signs that we are dysregulated? Because in the
Mhm.
entrepreneur space specifically, we see that like you're anxious, you're jittery, you're feeling on edge, you're overreacting, you're breathing heavily. We often hear that conversation mainly in the topics of like breath work and ice baths and meditation and all of those things. But I'm wondering in like day to day
Mhm.
lack of regulation. Because oftentimes when you see it in the entrepreneur space, it's talked about in such extreme circumstances of like you're completely dysregulated. But I'm thinking you're talking about existing
Yeah.
dysregulated day to day.
Yeah.
And so I'm
Yeah.
curious, like, for the kind of, I guess, pillar one of regulation, what does that regulation foundation kind of look like?
Totally. I will say, just as the more I do this work, the more I understand it and connect more dots. So, I've actually shifted to explain to as three types of regulation. So, that first being nervous system regulation. So, that is the part where your primal being is thinking it's in danger. And the way that we can identify that is very simple, specific symptoms like heart racing, tense muscles, physically rushing, or even like the mental rushing, your thoughts just moving so, so fast, and, feeling hot and flush, all of these signs. And often they are physical signs of anxiety. You could clump those in there, right?
Mm.
Butterflies, that anxious tummy feeling. That's always my big, like, well, I don't
Yeah.
like that. But those are signs of dysregulation. And this might be tricky for some people because they may have been calling it anxiety and thinking that's a separate thing for a long time. Clump it in there for now, right? Anxiety is just your brain trying to keep you safe because it thinks it's in danger. So it's all the same. So
Yeah.
all of those would be signs of dysregulation. And the first step is being aware of it in the moment. Meaning when you're sitting at your desk writing out an email so damn fast that you're like, oh my God, let me just get this over with. Oh, I'm dysregulated, right? That rushing. That's the best one because it's physical. It's a little bit more outside of you, so you can see it a little bit more visually. So physically rushing, heart racing, tense muscles. Often ADHDers have like TMJ and like trap tension. So like being like this all
Yeah.
day is like part of
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
those are all signs. And then there's the mental side, which is like rumination, overwhelm, paralysis, racing thoughts. Those would also be part of that because your brain's trying to like crack the code and keep you safe, right? Let me ruminate on this and think about it for a week straight, even though it might be something you have no control over. There's nothing to figure out, but your brain feels unsafe. So it's trying to think about something over and over and over again. Even if you don't want to think about it, it won't let go. Those would all be signs of nervous system dysregulation.
Mm. And so when you mention regulation, a lot, as I was saying, like of what people will talk about is regulating by doing things.
Mm-hmm.
And so you were saying like the rushing, for example. And I remember you had mentioned to me like on a discussion, a call somewhere, you said like such an easy thing to do is to ask yourself, like when you're cleaning in the house, are you like running around cleaning or are you just cleaning? And it's actually funny because it was like 2 days ago and I had like makeup stuff all over the counter and toiletries and whatever. And I remember like, "Oh, I gotta go, I gotta go, I gotta go." So I started cleaning frantically. And because my bathroom is one big long mirror, I caught myself like I was just again like not present. And I caught myself and I'm go, 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 and I'm rushing and I'm trying to throw things everywhere to organize them. And as soon as I just like took a second and was like, chill out and clean normal. And so I was like, okay, great, slow down. And as soon as I did, the interesting part was I actually got it done faster. And I
Yeah,
remember
cool.
you talking about the fact that obviously there's dysregulation, but regulating should ideally be something that you can do in a given moment. And I think
Mm-hmm.
many times we hear about regulation being things like, to regulate your nervous system, exercise, and like go do yoga and things like that. And you talk about the ability to make regulation like simple and easy. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious, like if someone's in that moment, they feel like they are frantic within their house or they're like rush, 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 and they're trying to not just send an email, but like frantically send an email to get it done faster. How do we catch ourselves? How do we get that awareness to be like, wait a second and center?
Yeah, it's really one, you gotta be aware. If you are not aware of it and labeling, "Oh, I'm dysregulated," you
Mm,
can't do something with something you're not aware of. So, number 1, honestly, I would just spend time people clocking it, like, throughout, say, a few days. Like, there it is. I see I'm rushing. Oh, I see I'm tense. Oh, right,
mm.
'cause now when you start to notice something, it's like when you wanna buy a car and you start seeing it everywhere. It's like, you
Yes.
need to, like, start
Yes.
noticing it because then you're gonna notice it more, and then you can
Yeah.
do stuff with it. But then how we interrupt it is in the moment regulation, meaning if I'm rushing, I slow down, right? What's the antidote physically? What's the change of state I can make to kind of knock my system off of this dysregulated cycle?
Mm.
Knock it off of its course for a second. Even if it's for 1 second, it's of value,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Everything above 0 accumulates. So it's a consistency, meaning not even consistency because we can be so rigid about that, but continuous effort to interrupt that. So if you're physically rushing, like you did a great job, slow down.
Mm.
And you continue what you're doing, but in slowed down, not, frantic. If you notice, I'm just sitting here, I'm not doing anything, I'm not rushing, but I'm so tense. My shoulders are around my ears and I'm holding my breath. That can actually be another one. Oh,
Mm.
physically that just changes things for me even there. Even
Yeah.
pretending to be tense and holding my breath and
I
then
already
taking a
feel
deep
calmer.
breath,
Yeah.
it's like, oh,
Yeah.
that's nice. Like it will really change your internal state. So that's all it ever is. Interruption, interruption, interruption.
Mm.
Physically, to work on nervous system, you must change your physical state and your nervous system has to have a new experience over time. That's what kind of knocks it back into, oh, the bear must be gone. I think I'm okay. Maybe I can naturally just keep my shoulders down and my breathing going instead of always having to remind myself. But it starts with the conscious reminder and the awareness. Rushing for me is my favorite one. And sometimes I'll really go crazy. The other day I was working, my mom was at an appointment. So I just took my computer to a coffee shop down the street. I was like walking across the street and I'm like, notice how slow I was going. I was like, this is so nice. It's just like, do, 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 no rush. It's like, we forget, it's like challenging that, going in the
Yeah.
opposite way almost sometimes just to prove to yourself you can is like, there's no rush.
Yeah.
Take it easy. And that's the nervous system regulation piece, is interrupting it physically. Your nervous system doesn't speak any languages. You can't talk to it. You can't say, you're safe. That's not going to
affirmation.
yeah, that's not going to be enough. We can talk about the thought and belief stuff in a second if you want, and that's tied in, but it can't just be that. You have to actually interrupt your state, whether it be relaxing muscles, a deep breath, or slowing down. Honestly, that's enough. Those three. If you did that somewhat consistently when you noticed you were dysregulated, you would have a change of state.
And I guess a question that I have, because I feel like it would be something that if I was listening, I would want to know is, do you ever still today, after all this work, get dysregulated? Because I think you mentioned one of the things that, people you work with are like, but I want to be consistent and I want to do it perfectly. And it's like this like all or nothing, which we'll get to. And I'm wondering, for the person listening, do you have to still practice this? Or do you feel like it has now, because of repetition and consistency, become like this like way of being?
I would say 100% of the time I was dysregulated before. Now I function from a place of regulation, but I can get dysregulated. So like my
Okay.
baseline is chill. I wake up and I'm just present in the room. I'm in my bed.
Yeah.
Usually there's a child that's crawled in beside me and I can say, good morning. Right. I'm not like, oh my God, what am I going to do today? How am I going to handle all that? And oh my God, I have 2 calls and how am I going to do it? Right.
Yeah.
That's what I used to be like. So
Yeah.
most of the time I'm regulated, but I absolutely get dysregulated. Such a good example, which I was actually going to make a post about this reenactment about this yesterday. I was at this left turning light with my boys going to a friend's kid's birthday party. Do not need to be there the minute it starts. Like, this is not life or death.
Yeah.
But we were at this light and there was some weird construction going on and it was absurdly taking a very long time. Like this one, you know how like every light's so long and then your light is like so short and it's a bit frustrating. I was definitely noticing like, oh my God, we're going to be late. Oh my God, why is this light taking so long? And I was like, girl, okay. And then for me at this point, it starts with the self-talk. But then you have to do the external or the physical change as well. But if your brain is going, oh my God, it shouldn't be taking this long and we're going to be late and it's bad if we're going to be late and everyone's going to be mad and oh my God, it's going to be very hard to like take a deep breath and relax. So I noticed I was thinking that and I was sitting there and because my boys were in the back, I said out loud, well, I guess it'll take as long as it takes. Like, what are we going to do? There's no rush. And then I went, and I turned the music up a little bit and we just sang to the music. I'm like, what else am I going to do? I either sit here in pain, thinking about how it should be faster and how it's so bad and living in fear and freaking out over something that's perfectly fine. Or I can talk to myself a little bit, take a deep breath and be here and just chill. It's wild how much control we have over our physical experience inside our bodies when you know what to do. And then I was fine the rest of the day. So it was like probably like a 2-minute little blip.
Yes.
Big whoop. It's totally fine. I expect to get dysregulated and I get more dysregulated about bigger things for longer, like maybe a whole day.
Yeah.
About like a launch or, something with my business that I'm scared of, or I'm writing a book and that can be really big and scary. And so, yes, I'll have bigger instances, but I still have the tools, the knowledge. I know how to come back down, get out of it and not like stay there and then crash or tip into paralysis. I have not experienced paralysis for a good 1.5 years, if not 2 years, because of these tools not going so far into those extremes that I tip into that.
And when you say paralysis, just for someone who kind of would want to picture that, because maybe they're in that place, what would paralysis look like?
I feel like we need a new word because that's definitely not politically correct, but that is the word that's used. So I'm going to use it. But it is like you want to do something and you physically, literally can't. And no one could understand that. Just get up and do it. You can't. It's not that you physically can't, but there's, it's like freeze, fight, flight, freeze, fawn. It is like a deer in the headlights. You think that deer is thinking, I want to stand here in the middle of the road and stare at those headlights and
Yeah.
freeze. No, it's a biological response to be thinking there's like a predator going to get you, and that's the way you're going to survive is by freezing. So it's very biological. It is not our fault, but it is also something we can prevent by being regulated, because that's when we go into fight or flight that happens.
Got it. Got it. I feel like for me, that's shown up in like seeing all of the things that need to be done and feeling like I have no capacity typically until a day or two later, once I actually would quote unquote rest. But the interesting part
Mhm.
was that my brain wouldn't rest, my body was
Yeah.
resting. So, like the
Yeah.
entire time that you're sitting, you're thinking about all the things you should be doing, even though you're not doing them. And you're
Yeah.
like, I'm going to do them tomorrow because then I'm going to have the motivation to do it. But then again, it's this the constant cycle you talk
My
about.
gosh, yes. And
Um,
I will just say what's so nice as a regulated ADHDer, if I rest, I rest. If I'm gonna do something, I do it. I
yes.
don't fight with it. I really should be if I think I should be doing it, I'm gonna go do it then. Or if I'm gonna say, "No, I'm not doing it," or have no energy or can't do it, I accept and I move on and I actually rest, which then
Mm,
restores me to do things later
mhm.
versus this no man's land of like, I'm not resting, but I'm not doing and I'm getting nowhere, right? It's this stagnancy, which that's what paralysis can feel like, especially if you're like, I really wanna be doing that, or I
Yes.
feel so much shame and I should be doing that, but I'm not, right? It's just like no man's land. It's like purgatory. It's a little,
Yeah.
religious, but it's like it really is like this
Yeah.
in between. I'm not resting and enjoying myself, but I'm also not doing anything and getting anything done. And when you're regulated, you either resting or doing,
Well, that
right?
kind of also segues into your other piece, which is the belief system. Because
Mhm.
I feel like part of you talk about the importance, which is kind of, I guess, like the tier two of the significance of your beliefs and your values, and like how what we believe about ourselves or about, let's just say, for example, to that example about work or about rest,
Mhm.
how that influences our ability to stay stuck. And I remember you had shared with me, prompting questions of things to consider. And you had said, well, what were you taught to believe about rest? What were you taught to believe about like just sitting? And my belief was like, if there's work to be done, you do it. Like that was something
Mhm.
that growing up, grandparents, parents, that was always what was passed on. If there's work to be done, you shouldn't be sitting down. And so then that kind of like further reinforced, just like you're saying, when I would go to sit, I'm like, oh my God, there's so much work that needs to be done. There's so much that needs to be done here. And you couldn't rest. And so I'm curious, how do beliefs or maybe even values that, whether they're caught from someone, they're taught to us, how do those impact the experience of ADHD?
Mhm. So you have the nervous system regulation, which is I see as like a tree, is like the roots. Then the trunk of that is your thoughts and beliefs. So I'm now calling that thought and belief regulation. Is like, are your thoughts and beliefs adding to your dysregulation? Are they dysregulating you?
Mm,
If I believe I should always be doing things and can never rest until everything's done, my God, you're going to be dysregulated because it's never going to be done. That's the nature of life. The to-do list never ends. So if we're caught in that, you will push yourself until you crash, and that
mm,
belief will be dysregulating. So we can go on and on about why I don't believe dysregulating beliefs are true, but that's kind of a secondary conversation. The main thing is if your beliefs are dysregulating, I don't care if they're true, they're not helping you, right? Because
mm.
beliefs are an opinion, they're not
Right. Right.
objective truths. So some people might really have a few beliefs where it's like, but it's true, and they have a hard time letting that go. So we would
Mm.
work deeper on that. But if you believe I'm behind and need to catch up, and you believe that every day for the rest of your life, you will never be regulated.
You'll
Because
live that.
what
Yeah.
sane person would slow down as a response to, I'm behind and need to catch up?
Mm.
Nobody. Why would you slow down? You need to go
Yeah.
faster.
Yeah.
But
Well,
that
actually,
is
maybe on that, what are, in all the work you've done with clients, what are some maybe like common beliefs or values or examples that someone might think of that are an indicator that our beliefs and values could be, fueling, if you will, the dysregulation we're experiencing?
totally. So I'm behind and need to catch up. I think that's number one. I don't know an ADHD who doesn't believe that every single day, no matter the reality. That's the thing. is no like, wow, I'm caught up now. Life is good and I'm good to go forever. No, you might have one afternoon where you're like, oh, great. But then it comes back around the next day. So that there's not enough time in the day. I can't, enjoy things until everything's done. I just got to get, through this week and then next week I'll relax. Right? It's just always this like tricking ourselves into that push, 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 go, 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 hustle, hustle, hustle. You can't slow down. You got to work harder. Beliefs that dysregulate us. If I believe there's not enough time in the day, I'm going to be rushing my head off. Like, right? It's like that also doesn't make any sense. You're going to lose that battle 100% of the time. There's 24 hours and that's what you get. Like, but there's not enough time. Okay, but this is the time you have. So let's use it and carry on. And so when you shift those beliefs to more regulating beliefs, like even neutral. I like to go a little positive, like there's the right amount of time. How do I know? Because that's the time there is. But that might be a little too far for some people. So you could even say there is the time there is. Now, what do I do with it? Right? And now what? Right? I always love the and now what? It keeps that regulation is not about stagnancy. It's not about, disengaging from life. It's not about even doing less. It's about having a steady cadence that's sustainable but productive and growth oriented, like denotes, what's the word? It gives the energy of like moving forward though, not in a rushed way, but okay, what now? Right? Moving. I'm not stagnant and stuck, but I'm not running so fast that I'm falling over. That is what we want. So if it's okay, I have the time I have. Now what? What's the first thing I'm going to do? All right, let's start with this. Now I'm moving. Right? Versus, oh my God, there's so much to do and I have to get it all done now because I'm behind. I need to catch up, but I can't do it all today. Now I've scrolled for 3 hours. Like it pushes you into overwhelm and paralysis. When your beliefs are more regulated, which typically means aligned with reality instead of fighting reality, there's not enough time in the day is a fight with reality, right? Reality is there's 24 hours. You're saying, no, that's wrong. Right? And now we're fighting. That's going to be very dysregulating, right? Because you will never win. So it's very stressful. Or I'm behind. I need to catch up. Because what you're saying is I'm over here, but I should be over there. But you're over here, but I should be over there. Okay, well, the reality is you're here. So what are we going to do from here, right? It's connecting with reality and moving along. But when you fight with reality and you have these beliefs that you're so tightly held onto, because we think the fear, shame, urgency, guilt will motivate us. If I'm hard enough on myself, if I freak out enough about being far enough behind, that'll somehow propel me forward. I never had that experience. It just got me more stuck. So it's very counterintuitive, this work, because when you feel behind, the answer is slow down. That doesn't make any sense, but it is the answer.
Do you find that they're beliefs that we hold, meaning they're beliefs that we've created over time? Maybe I'm thinking even for you, if you had, say 30 years of living a certain way, you have all those beliefs that are the underbelly of that. Or do you think that there are usually things that we kind of took from others? Is it usually something that you find people are getting, for example, from parents and their upbringing? Or would you say that the experience of kind of having ADHD and not being regulated is like only, like, for example, I'm thinking you're the person who has ADHD and you've got all these things to get done in a day and they're never getting done because you're dysregulated and you're finding you're frantic and you're not feeling that you're calm and centered to make movement in them. So that just further gives you more evidence. See, lots of things to get done, not enough hours in the day. So I'm wondering, is the experience of ADHD, do you think, part of what's kind of giving us the evidence to have those beliefs? Or is it usually something you see with clients of, passed on from, say, friends or family or society or peers and that sort of thing?
I think it's a little bit of both, plus your nervous system being in dysregulation. If my body thinks I'm in danger, my thoughts are going to be very fearful.
Yeah.
Right? The roots of the tree, the nervous system dysregulation grows the trunk of the tree, which is the beliefs and the thoughts, right? It's all connected. So it's, because your system is in fight or flight, your thoughts are going to be based in fear and protection, not in peace and possibility. It's like, that's just natural. ADHD is very hereditary. So if you have ADHD, you're very likely to have a parent who has ADHD who then gave you their dysregulated beliefs. So you got it from the outside and the inside. And then, like you said, because you are dysregulated, you are in the extreme. So you're saying, see, look, this is the way it is. Look, I can't get anything done.
Mm,
Look, I can't be consistent. Look, I have to push because then I will crash. So it's kind of like coming at you from every angle. We had no hope of
yeah.
of challenging any of that because it felt so real and true and coming at us from every angle. But I only work with adults because as adults, we can kind of sit and go, wait a minute, like maybe that's not true because it hasn't worked for 35 years. And I
Yeah.
have, enough autonomy and enough power in my life as the grown up to maybe make different
Pick
decisions
a
and
new belief.
believe
Yeah.
new things because I'm
Mhm.
typically the adult in the room now. There
Yeah.
isn't a parent coming to get me in trouble. So I don't have to feel like I'm
Yeah.
just waiting to, get a slap on the wrist anymore. And so it's a really good opportunity in adulthood to rewrite some of those stories, get new beliefs going. And it's like a dominoes. Once you're more regulated, your thoughts and beliefs will be more naturally regulated because your
Mm.
system is. And when your thoughts are more regulated because you're working on them, that will calm your nervous system. And it really is like affects each other.
Got it. Okay. And now step 3, or shall I say like level 3, is really when the all or nothing comes in, which is you mentioned earlier that the kind of classic example you have, which is like either the entire house is clean or it's a disaster, or like I'm
Mhm.
putting all the laundry away or I'm not going to touch it until I have capacity to do so. And I actually will say, you mentioned this on one of our very, very like early, connection calls that we had together. And I remember going after that call and looking at my laundry. There was like 4 heaping 4 heaping mounds of it. And I was like, Sunday, Sunday, okay? On Sunday, because there's nothing ever usually happening on Sundays.
Yeah.
And then Sunday would come and I thought, I don't want to freaking do that laundry. So it's so interesting because it was months ago. And now you had said something in a call and you were like, yeah, like just do a little bit each day. And I thought, that's not extreme enough for me. Like I'm either it's a complete disaster and I cleaned it all up and I get that dopamine hit if it's all gone now, and it sounds so simple. I know for someone listening, you're like, okay, like you're doing laundry every day, like big whoop. But it was really a big change because I was like, I'm talking for 30 years. I was the person who had the laundry in the corner. You had that chair in your room that had all those sweaters on it. Like I was living that life for years and years and years. And then now I'm in this routine now where I'm like, every day I'm like, is there laundry to be done? Is there laundry to be done? And it's
Oh,
just like a checkbox I check in every day. And I'm like, oh, maybe not today, but I'll do it tomorrow. And I've never in my entire life been at that
so neat.
place. But that was really because of the note and the things that you've shared around the all or nothing thinking. And
Mm.
again, to your point, I never had an awareness of it. And because I didn't really see a cycle. Like I just thought
Mhm.
I can't be consistent and I'm a slob is kind of again like the labels that I took from that. But then when you gave the all or nothing thinking and you brought that to an awareness, just that alone changed everything for me because I realized how many buckets it was all or nothing.
Mm.
I would either eat super healthy or I'd eat garbage. And it would be like there's nothing in between, or
Yeah.
like all the laundry's done or none is done. So all or nothing thinking is your tier 3. And so I would love for you to unpack what is all or nothing thinking and how does that
Mhm.
present and how do we shift into some more flexible thinking or flexible
Totally.
living?
So, kind of with my approach, so we have the nervous system regulation, we have the thought and belief regulation, and then we have the behavior regulation, which I have come to realize all or nothing thinking fits in that because when we think that way, we behave that way. So it's really
Mm,
about how we're acting. So, like you said, you were acting, your behavior was do all the laundry, don't do any of the laundry because of that way of thinking. So, when we want to work on behavior, what we want to look at is behavior that's in the extremes. That is dysregulated behavior, meaning, cleaning every single thing and washing the baseboards or I'm not even gonna pick up the towel off the floor. Like, we are
yeah.
literally so wild and so extreme.
Yeah.
Even in our perception of ourselves is like, I'm amazing and perfect and should be a rock star and have so much potential. Also, I'm a piece of shit that, can't brush my teeth every day. Like, we're so extreme in the way we think and therefore in the way we behave and how we act. And the extremes show where the dysregulation is.
Mm,
Regulation, the definition of regulation is the rate or speed at which a machine functions properly. So, meaning we do not function well in all, we do not function well in nothing. We function well in balance and
mm.
sustainability, like your example of, I'm sure that feels so much better,
Mhm.
right? To
Mhm.
not have a huge mountain to deal with once every 2 weeks. It's like, oh, a little bit every day. We actually function best in regulated, balanced behavior. So that may be chipping away at cleaning the house a little bit, a few times a week, instead of like, okay, Sunday, You got your
Yeah.
vacuum and your mop. Like, I'm going to climb this mountain. Like, we actually don't thrive in that. We may
Yeah.
think we do, but we don't. So with behavior, we want to see all or nothing. Where am I? Like you said, with food, I was in restrict binge cycle for 10 years, which is why I healed my relationship with food and actually learned about kind of regulation, which I didn't have that word for it at the time. But I was like literally eating chicken and broccoli or
Mm.
going to the gas station, buying 3 bags of chips and binging them in my room. Like those were the two options.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I thought I had a food problem. I thought I was addicted to food. I'm like, what's your problem? You just got to restrict more, Jenna. You're out of control. Oh
Yeah.
my God. It turns out if you eat regularly and normally, you won't binge. And my binging stopped within literally, it's like over 10 years ago now. I'm sure it's like stopped within 2 weeks and I never binged again. Like
Mm.
you couldn't pay me now to binge. Like I physically can't have that physical
Yeah.
experience again because my body is chill, it's neutral, it's balanced. I'm, flexible thinking with food, healed my relationship with food permanently.
Mm.
The same with changing our behavior with how we clean, how we tackle the home, how we do work, everything. If we create new balanced approaches and beliefs and regulate our nervous system, now all these like swinging from side to side is stopped. And I think once you see it, you can't unsee it. And I do suspect even for you, that will be a permanent change.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have days when you're like, oh, I didn't get to it for a while, so it piled up, but it won't be that same like swinging from extremes
Yeah.
with no control. Like, and that's what's so cool about this work is like once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you know the truth, you can't unknow it. And
Mm.
then now you're just aware of yourself and you understand
Mhm.
what you need to do and you understand where you thrive. And like my, red light example, it doesn't mean perfection,
Yes.
but also I don't have a need for perfection. I also like I'm chill. Like
Yeah.
whether I get dysregulated at a light or not, I'm fine. And so that's also a different thing is like, no, maybe I don't even do every single thing perfectly in my entrepreneurship journey, for example, but I don't need to. Like, so
Mm.
there's also that softening of like that desperation of being rigid and perfect that goes away as well. It's kind of like I can roll with the punches and just do my best. And I also feel good about that. So, like, it so changes everything.
Well, I know you had, at one point kind of noted as like the ADHD flow approach. Some people have seen you've mentioned it or nodded to in your content before in your marketing. And it really does for anyone who's new to it. It does feel like that. You feel like you're just like it's such a great sound because there's no better way to describe it. When you're in flow, you're like do 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 do. You're just cleaning your house, but you're not cleaning it frantically. You're just like, yeah, so I'm just gonna fold the towels. Like you're calm, but you're consistent. And I
Yeah.
think that it's just it's a weird thing to explain. But I like again in the laundry example, it's the same environment, it's the same situation, it's an entirely different experience.
Mhm.
And I think that that's the basis of these principles is like it's not a matter of the fact that all your circumstances that used to be there when you were struggling are just going to disappear. Like the chips are still there, the broccoli's still there, but now you're like, wait a second, it could be instead of one or the other, I could have broccoli and then have like one serving of chips tonight and I get the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's the same environment, just our experience of it gets so adjusted.
Mm.
The last kind of two that you usually note to are boundaries.
Mhm.
And you talk a lot about the impact of people pleasing in people with ADHD. How does people pleasing or boundaries kind of correlate to our experience of ADHD or dysregulation?
Totally. So that would be the fight, flight, freeze, fawn. That's the fawn is, how that relates to being in imminent life threatening danger is like, I'm going to appease this aggressor so that I can get out of this alive, right? That's the
Mm.
primal thing. So that's what we were doing. Oh my God, I feel unsafe. So I got to make everyone happy. I got to do everything for everyone else. F my own happiness and enjoyment of life. As long as everyone else is good, I'll be safe.
Mm.
So it's not about being nice. It's not about being of service. We can also have those qualities as well. But that compulsive need to put everyone else's needs first, that inability to honor yourself or put yourself first in any situation ever is a defense mechanism because we're in fight or flight. So when you do the nervous system regulation, you'll naturally feel less desperate to make everyone happy and then make everyone like you and worry what everyone thinks and be so sensitive to criticism, right? Rejection sensitivity dysphoria is something very common in ADHD, that it's like any perceived criticism, and we have such a big reaction to it because we feel we're going to get kicked out of the tribe and die. Like it's that primal, right? That's why it's so disproportionate. Because it's like, wow, my boss gave me one bit of feedback and now I'm like, I'm quitting. Can't handle it here. I'm failing. It's like, no, you're fine. So when you do the nervous system regulation, that will naturally dissipate, but then you can also work on the beliefs about that. Is like, is that true? Do you really need to be putting everyone else's needs and saying yes to everything? What if you said no? What if you put those boundaries up? And then when people do that, they realize the evidence is like, no one really cares. They're just like, oh, okay, I'll ask someone else. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But when you're in fight or flight, it feels like life or death. Maybe not consciously. You might not be like, I'm going to die if I don't make Susie happy.
Right.
No, but you're primally thinking that, which is why it's so uncomfortable to say no. It's so uncomfortable to put up boundaries. So when you do this work, that fawn piece will calm down, which is so freeing, because honestly, all that people pleasing, no one cares really. Like if you're like the person who is saying no to that thing that you used to say yes to, yeah, at first they might be like, what? People are so worried about themselves. Like all this energy we're putting into making everyone happy is only exhausting us and not really making much of a difference externally. So we want to put our energy where it's going to make a difference. And so having boundaries and not people pleasing is going to really preserve a lot of your energy for what matters.
And it makes me also think that maybe part of the people pleasing is also the fact that I'm thinking if someone's been dysregulated and they know the feeling of that, they know the impact of that, whether conscious or not, they just know the way they've been living life, and they see this opportunity, a question, a decision, an invitation to do something, and we're like, if I say no to this, this has the ability to make me dysregulated, which means all of this reality, and you don't have the tools yet to maybe overcome that. You're like, yeah, sure, I'll do it, because you just
Exactly.
don't want to kind of like dive deeper into that cycle. So that makes a ton of sense. You also mentioned, which is kind of the last tier, or like tier 5, which is urgency and avoidance. So we either avoid, we panic, or we kind of do both, which you note is obviously absolutely exhausting. So how does the cycle of like avoidance and urgency play into things for someone who's navigating ADHD?
So we can see that kind of in the behavior again, right? I'm either not doing it at all, like with your laundry. I'm either not touching one shirt, or I'm climbing the whole mountain and getting the whole thing done, right? So extremes. I'm either avoiding it until, oh my God, I have to do it today because I have no clothes, right? Avoidance and urgency. So we see that in the extremes. When you are regulated, you are naturally going to be more balanced, more logical, and you're going to see that that makes no sense whatsoever, right? Dysregulation is very illogical. It's reactive. It's fear fueled. It's like a knee-jerk reaction. Inherently, a knee-jerk reaction is not smart. It's not thoughtful. It's not proportional to the situation. It's like once when I was grabbed downtown, I did swing my elbow so hard. I ran, I went, fuck you. Like an animal. Like that makes sense when you're in danger. That does not make sense. That level of a reaction, right, is not, it wasn't logical. I didn't think, wow, someone's grabbing me, right? It probably wasn't even that scary of a situation, but it was weird. And so I reacted big without thinking. That's what we're doing all the time when we're dysregulated. So we're just going, oh, I'm going to avoid that laundry because it feels weird to look at it and I feel uncomfortable and dysregulated about it. Oh my God, I have no clean clothes. Oh my God, I got it. Right. This is not logical. It does not make sense to avoid something until you're panicking about it. And we know that when we sit down and think clearly. But when you're just living your life in this rushed, dysregulated way, you're simply in knee-jerk reaction mode all the time. So we want to observe that, at least be aware of it because you're not going to make this go away in a day. So while you're in it, you need to go, I see I'm avoiding that. Okay. You got to face the facts first. You can't just be flinging your knees around and not being aware of what's going on. So it's like, okay, I'm still not doing the thing that makes sense. I get that, but I'm at least seeing it now. I'm avoiding that. And then, when you fling back into urgency, we can be aware of that. So just like everything else, the first step there is awareness. And then the second step is interruption. So say you wanted to work on your laundry, you would walk by your laundry room, go, oh, I'm avoiding that. It's piling up. I
Close the
see.
door.
Okay. And instead of closing the door, I'm going to open the door and go stand in there for a minute. I'm facing, this is like pretty much like exposure therapy.
Yeah.
I am not in the function of a therapist in my groups or in my program, but that's kind of the same principle, right? Is, oh, let me go be with the thing I'm avoiding and show myself it's not a bear that's going to kill me, right? Because that's what your system is thinking it is. Okay, there's a lot of clothes in here. Right. And then if you have the tools of, flexible thinking, all right, I'm going to put one load in. I know there's 10 loads in here probably.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do one today. Let me chip away. Let's see. Starting to practice a different type of behavior. Long story short, if you get that nervous system regulated, you get those behaviors out of the extremes and you work on your thinking. Now you are someone who will naturally live more in that middle ground and do away. And then you'll have your blips, but you'll know what to do with it. You know how to come back and carry on. And that results in more consistent action in the direction you want to go, being less exhausted, and enjoying this life, which honestly, that's my main focus for clients is like, you could be having fun right now and you're miserable. And it's not about the situation, it's about the state you're in. So I personally was unwilling to believe that we're just here to check off the to-do list until we die.
Yeah.
So I'm like, nope, not here for it. And that's kind of how we came to this approach.
Well, I'm wondering, it instantly makes me wonder, do you think that there's a safety in keeping the dysregulation? Because
familiarity is safety.
Yeah.
Your brain, and we know this, right? Your brain will attract the same relationship over and over and over again, even if it's incredibly toxic, because the familiar is what feels safe.
Yes.
Right? Even not consciously. You may not consciously know you're doing it, but it's like, oh, I go to what's familiar, even if it's hell, because it feels safer than the alternative. At least I didn't die. Right? Because that's the system is so primal in that way. It thinks in life or death. It doesn't think in like happiness and flexibility and like what's the best. It thinks in, am I going to live? Okay, well, let's go with this because that's what I'm used to. So your system is used to the extremes. It's used to flinging from all to nothing. It's used to being dysregulated. You haven't died yet, so this must be okay, right? Like, let's just stay here.
You'll be all right. You'll be all right.
Let's just stay here because I don't know what that whole regulation thing's going to be like. That could kill us.
Well, that's the thing is, even when you had mentioned, do a little, I just tell people do a little bit each day. And I thought, huh? Because I thought that's just not, that's not a life I've ever known. That's not something like a chip away at it. Upbringing wise was not something talked about. Like, you don't just chip away at it. It's like, well, we got to get it all done. Like, it was always, again, the beliefs, the values were there. The all or nothing thinking was there. And then literally that exact example, my laundry room was busting at the seams with stuff. And I remember thinking, okay, well, there's no way I'm getting this all done today. But I thought, whatever, I'll throw in one load. And at the time, I did think it was silly. I thought, what is this? Like, this feels so silly to do one load, like you're saying, out of 10, because this is really not going to make much progress. But what I take from what you teach is like there's this really, and I'm not sure from like a psychological perspective, there might be a term for this, but you do the thing and you, like, to your point, you might be like, this feels uncomfortable. This is not what I always do. I always do all the laundry on Sundays and I have this misery that I live in and it's what I've always known. Like, you just kind of have this cycle, this identity, this routine. Then you switch that up. You take an action after you have the awareness. And then what I found happened was I had this like little dopamine hit and I thought, oh, this is kind of nice, right? Like, I had clothes to wear and I had none of the urgency. By Sunday, I had like 6 loads done. Cool. And I thought, so like Sunday started to feel lighter. And then it was like, I'm curious how I could maintain this. So I thought I'm going to just try it for a couple more days. And then that turned into a couple weeks. That's turned into a couple months. Now, granted, I'm just going to be really honest. This is mainly only in the laundry bucket for right now.
Hey, but that's
progress.
That's
progress.
Like really cool.
Yeah. But it's, I think, such a testament to what you do. And I want to, I guess, put a bow on this for everybody because I also want to be fair in like setting expectations. You talk a lot about the fact that like there's a lot of progress you can make quickly, but it's also not like this magic pill where you just like, great, like I have this, 5 steps and boom, all of the things that you once knew are now done. And so if someone's listening today and they feel like, okay, like I definitely maybe in the earlier portion feel like I feel really seen in the symptoms of the signs that are kind of coming up. I do feel like I am making some of those mistakes of the urgency, of the all or nothing thinking. And now I kind of have these 5, principles to dive into. How long or what kind of journey
Mhm.
does it look like for someone to maybe be like, Jenna before all of this clarity to the way that you are now and kind of having this harmony that you have now?
I think understanding it in stages is really valuable. Just as you were talking, I was like, what's a good analogy? It's almost like your shoulders out of the socket. And yeah, you
Mm,
can put it back in and that's instant relief, but it's going to take a long time for it to heal.
mm.
You can't go and, like, play
Yeah.
baseball tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, you have to, like, have a sling, and it's gonna heal. So there is instant relief. Like, I'm halfway done our current set of groups, and I've had a lot of great testimonials just, like, of people talking on the calls of, like, "Oh my god, this has been transformative. Like, I was
Mhm.
skeptical, but oh my
Mhm.
god, I've seen such growth." But this is a lifelong endeavor. Like, this is how I will live and this is how I will think for the rest of my life. Not in a like, wow, I have to really, always be taking classes and be so intense about it, but this is how I will think for the rest of my life. And I will get dysregulated and I will re-regulate and I will carry on. So you get some instant relief being aware and making those first shifts, but you will get knocked off. And I have clients right now who are like, oh my God, I was doing so good and I'm struggling this week. I'm like, dude, this is like, let's talk about the next 20 years, not these 2 months. Like, this is a long term
Yeah.
endeavor,
Yeah.
but you do get instant results to a degree. So there's enough, which I think is like such a gift because it's enough of a glimmer to like motivate you to keep going,
Mhm.
but it's not
Mhm.
all, like, oh, wrapped up in a bow. Bye.
Yes.
Like, I do, even when people are starting with my program, which is only like 3 months, I do say, like, think about this as like giving yourself the rest of the year to really do this work. Like, this is
Mm.
not like, then you're going to be quite solid. And then
Mhm.
you'll just naturally think this way and you'll use your tools and you'll, interrupt yourself when you're dysregulated and stuff, but it will come much more naturally. But
Right.
this is not, one weekend intensive and you're good to go. Like,
Mm.
it's more of a,
It's a
again,
reps thing.
1 week
Yeah.
intensive, all or nothing. Okay, let's go like 8 hours a day and hammer it out. No, little bits
Yeah.
over time,
Yeah.
nothing crazy. Even in the work I do on our sessions is like the quote unquote homework is small each week, but you're building something foundational and changing something over time. And that's kind of how you do the work, is the work itself as well. Slow and steady, but you're going to have transformation and it will be lifelong as long as you don't completely disengage with it.
And I think, like, for me, when I first heard the slow and steady or the idea of chip away, I physically felt that in my nervous system. I was like, I want the intensive. I want to walk in with ADHD and leave without it. Like, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
drop it here. And that originally, that response to me was the awareness that there was work to be done. So I also just want to, like,
Yes.
I guess, break the fourth wall. If anyone just listened to that idea of slow and steady, consistent integration, routine over time, building on of habits and lifestyle. And you're like, but I don't want that. I want the like overnight, I don't deal with this anymore. If that's the instant thought or feeling that came up for you, that is an
That's the
indicator to
whole problem.
slide into Jenna's DMs or website or whatever. Because I think, again, it goes back to the whole idea exactly as you're saying of like, I'd love to do an intensive, but that's basically the basis of all or nothing thinking of
Yeah.
I have it right now and I don't want it. So the other extreme. Okay, so obviously today we covered so much, and to be totally honest, you guys, this is like a drop in the bucket of all of the content and the value and all the information that's available that you can consume from her podcast, all the things. If someone wants to dive more into, your frameworks, your principles, or maybe listening today realizes that, their ADHD has gotten to a place where they recognize today, yeah, I do need to kind of have a new approach or do something a little bit different with it. Where's the best place for them to kind of learn more and get some more insight and information from you?
Yeah, so I am on TikTok and Instagram at ADHD with Jenna Free. I have a free guide that people can download. I'm sure that'll be in the show notes.
Yeah.
That's a PDF and a video of me walking you through it, just as like some first steps of understanding the concepts and actually taking action. And then I have a podcast, ADHD with Jenna Free, and my program, ADHD Groups. It opens every once in a while. So that is the way to really do the work with me, A to Z, where I hold your hand and we really talk through all the barriers that are going to come up. Like Kate said, it's like, they're going to have feelings that dysregulation is going to resist, right?
Yeah.
This work. But that's why we do it. That's why I do it more in live coaching, not a course or something like that, because you need the like hand holding and you need the,
Yes.
what about this? But what about that? I'm scared about this. Like you need to work through all that to
Uh-huh.
kind of get to that promised land, if you will.
Yeah. And I will say a couple things. Her free resource, I highly, highly recommend go getting a copy of that because I don't know about you, but I'm like a very visual person. And the visual of kind of what we talked about today will be in there and kind of dove into deeper. So if you're a visual learner, highly recommend that. It's going to kind of help to take what we took today and make it into a picture for you. And the thing that I often found really interesting when you mentioned your groups was the fact that there wasn't like these pre-recorded masses of videos. And I think also for anybody who, like myself, has maybe at times had certain things you want to work on and you're just like hoarding information, you'll remember that at the beginning of today, Jenna talked about the aspect that ADHD is a lot about integration. And so I also just wanted to kind of connect those two pieces because I think it's really important if you're somebody who's saving all the TikToks and you're listening maybe even to the podcast and you're like, I have all this information and I'm consuming. But even with that consumption, your feeling of ADHD within your life still remains the same. It could also be a really good invitation for some integration work, not just the information work that you've been doing thus far. So thank you so much for sharing that. We definitely will have all the information in the Ambitious as well as the show notes below. Jenna, thank you so much for coming on. I know we probably could have done, there's so many side conversations we could have gone into, but thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much.
It was awesome. So you guys, obviously, of course, we will see you on the next episode. And as always, stay ambitious.